Hello friends, let us now learn about some of the miscellaneous tests which are important in this lower limb. Okay, so different types of tests which can be done in lower limb, we will learn about them. So first type of test which we can do is called as Knelton's line. Okay, so what is this Knelton's line? This Knelton's line, here a line is drawn connecting the anterior superior iliac spine to the ischial tuberosity. If you draw a line connecting from anterior superior iliac spine to ischial tuberosity, and if this line passes through the greater trochanter, then we call it as Knelton's line. Okay, here we are drawing a line from anterior superior iliac spine to the ischial tuberosity, and that line, if it passes through the greater trochanter, then we call it as Knelton's line. Then the second type of triangle, there is the second test which we can do is Bryan's triangle. So in this Bryan's triangle, first we palpate anterior superior iliac spine, and okay, and from you will see the anterior superior iliac spine, and then you will also see the greater trochanter. Then from the anterior superior iliac spine to the greater trochanter, you will draw a line. Okay, you will draw a line which is joining the anterior superior iliac spine to the greater trochanter. Then from the anterior superior iliac spine, you will draw a vertical line downwards. Similarly, from the greater trochanter, you will draw a horizontal line which is almost perpendicular connecting the second line, this line. Okay, then when you do this, you get a triangle, and the triangle which you get on doing this is called as Bryan's triangle. Okay, then the third important miscellaneous test is called as Cheyne's parallelogram. So what do you see this Cheyne's parallelogram? Here you have, this is, what is this? This is anterior superior iliac spine. Okay, what is this? This is greater trochanter. So you will draw two lines, okay, joining the anterior superior iliac spine and the greater trochanter. Okay, I'll draw this because this is not that good, right, this diagram. So you will draw a line with red. Okay, you will draw a line from anterior superior iliac spine to the greater trochanter. Similarly, on the opposite side also, you will draw a line joining from anterior superior iliac spine to the greater trochanter. Right, once you draw this line which is joining the anterior superior iliac spine and greater trochanter, these are the sides of the parallelogram. Now you will draw a hypothetical two parallel lines which are joining the two anterior superior iliac spine also, and you will also draw two more lines which are joining the both the greater trochanters also. And then if you see the measurements, this will form a parallelogram, and this parallelogram which is formed is called as Cheyne's parallelogram. Okay, now then we have one more line which is called as Shoemaker's line. So what is this Shoemaker's line? This Shoemaker's line is almost similar to the previous line which is drawn. Here this is anterior superior iliac spine, right? So this is greater trochanter, right? Similarly, here you have anterior superior iliac spine, and here you have greater trochanter. So you are drawing a similar lines just like the previous diagram, which is joining the anterior, you will draw a similar line which is joining the anterior superior iliac spine with the greater trochanter on both the sides. Okay, after drawing a line joining the anterior superior iliac spine and greater trochanter, now you will extrapolate the line. Okay, when you extrapolate this line, you will find that this line should be exactly passing through the umbilicus. Okay, this line will be exactly passing through the umbilicus. This line is called as Shoemaker's line. Both these lines should meet at the umbilicus. Okay, so that is Shoemaker's line. Then we have one more line which is called as Morris bitrochanteric line. So what do you see in this Morris bitrochanteric line? Here you will join, so you will find the pubic symphysis. So if you see, this is the pubic symphysis. Okay, now you will join, in this you will join a greater trochanter with the pubis symphysis. okay, on both the sides. If you join the greater trochanter with pubic symphysis on both the lines sides, that is called as Morris bitrochanteric line. Okay, next, the next test which is very important and which has great clinical significance is Trendelenburg test. So what do you do in this why do you do Trendelenburg test? This Trendelenburg test is done to check the stability of the hip. Okay, stability of the hip is tested by this Trendelenburg test. What do you do in this Trendelenburg test? Here the normal stability, if you see, the normal stability of the hip will depend upon three factors. Okay, so what are the factors through which the normal stability of the hip is maintained? One, by proper femur and head attachment and the acetabulum. So if you see, I'll even draw the diagram, just a minute. So this is the normal stability. These are the depending factors on which the normal stability of the hip is dependent. So if you see, we have, this is the head of the femur. I know my diagram is not good, not appropriate, but please bear with me. Okay, this is the head of the femur and this is the acetabulum, right? So first thing which is maintaining is this bond between the head of the femur and the acetabulum. This hip joint is maintaining the stability. That is one. Over this hip joint, what do you see? All the muscles which are covering this hip joint, especially the hip abductors, which are gluteus medius and gluteus maximus. Okay, so sorry, gluteus medius and gluteus minimus. These will also maintain the normal hip stability. And there is one more nerve which will maintain the normal hip stability, that is called as superior gluteal nerve, which is supplying this gluteus muscles. So that is also maintaining the hip stability, right? So we have three major things which are maintaining the hip stability. One is proper femoral head and acetabulum. Second, hip abductors, which is normal gluteus medius and gluteus minimus. Third, superior gluteal nerve. So first we will see causes of positive Trendelenburg test. So first we will see causes. The causes of positive Trendelenburg test can be divided into the following types. So first is based on these hip abductors. We will see, that is the power. If there is any problem in power, then that causes positive Trendelenburg test. What can occur in the problem means, here problem means there can be paralysis of abductor muscles. How can there be paralysis of this abductor muscles? These are the reasons. The paralysis of abductor muscles can be due to the superior gluteal nerve palsy. These abductor muscles are gluteus medius and gluteus minimus, right? So this gluteus medius or gluteus minimus are supplied by superior gluteal nerve. So whenever there is superior gluteal nerve palsy, there is no chance that the gluteus muscles are properly working, right? They undergo paralysis. So as a result, that will manifest as power problem. Then whenever there is polio, obviously polio is a disease involving the lower limbs, especially the quadriceps femoris and other muscles of the lower limb. So it can also cause paralysis of abductor muscles, and that can also lead to positive Trendelenburg test. Then iliotibial tract palsy, that can also lead to positive Trendelenburg test. Then second is we have decreased lever of arm. So decreased lever of arm is this, we have this is the head and we have neck, and we have the greater and lesser trochanter. This neck will provide the lever action which is given to this it is also, this neck is also providing stability, right? So whenever there is fracture neck of the femur, so obviously this stability has been lost. So that is seen in fracture neck of femur. Okay, then second we have absence of stable fulcrum. What is the stable fulcrum means? Here fulcrum is head, we are talking about head. So whenever there is destruction of the head, the destruction of the head can be in any of these following diseases. It can be in Perthes disease, or avascular necrosis of head, or lateral stages of tuberculosis of hip, that is stage 4 and stage 5, or it can be seen in septic arthritis. Okay, so these are the different causes where there is destruction of femoral head leading to positive Trendelenburg test. So in TB hip, okay, in TB hip, why is Trendelenburg test positive? That is because the head of the femur is destroyed, as we have already said. See, if it is the normal, if a person flexes his leg, okay, or lifts his leg from the ground, then both the sides of the pelvis are in a straight line. Okay, but if he lifts the leg, if one side is sagging downwards, that is the ipsilateral side on which leg is lifted, if that sags downward, then we call it as Trendelenburg test. Okay, so this is normal. Now why does this pelvis muscles are not dropped? This is because of the muscle action which is occurring, that is gluteus medius, gluteus minimus muscle action, and all the head and neck being intact and stable. So because of that there is no sagging. But here there is sagging because the muscles and nerves are damaged. Okay, now this is positive Trendelenburg test, right? This positive Trendelenburg test can be of two types. One, it can be unilateral or it can be bilateral. If this positive Trendelenburg test has unilateral, okay, if this is unilateral, then this can lead to lurching or Trendelenburg gait. If it is unilateral, the gait which you see in these individuals is called as lurching or Trendelenburg gait. If it is bilateral, the gait is called as waddling gait. If it is bilateral, we call it as waddling gait. So that is Trendelenburg test. Then the next test which is important here is about Thomas test. What does Thomas test do? So this Thomas test is done for knowing the hip flexion deformity. So how do you do this Thomas test? In this Thomas test, if you see here, the hip is flexed. Okay, if you see, if you normally we have lumbar lordosis which is present. Yeah, this is normal. Normally there is lumbar lordosis which is present like this. So when anyone sleeps, then this curvature which you see here produces some gap. Okay, so this is called as lumbar lordosis which is seen normally. But if you do a fixed flexion, okay, if you do hip flexion, because of this hip flexion, the lumbar lordosis is obliterated. Okay, because this lumbar lordosis is compensated up to 30 degrees of hip flexion. Okay, if flexion is more than 30 degrees, then there is flexion deformity of abnormal side of hip will be prominent. Okay, that is Thomas sign. In Thomas sign, this is mostly manifested when the hip flexion deformity is present more than 30 degrees. If present more than 30 degrees, then flip deformity of the abnormal side of hip will be prominent. So this is called as Thomas test, right? So these are the miscellaneous tests which are important in lower limb of in orthopedics. So thank you guys for watching my lecture. In the next class we will learn about one more fracture. Thank you.